That's a lot. That's a lot of heat.
It's a lot of heat. You're right. Yeah.
That's a lot of heat. I was watching it on the television this morning on the news, and he said we're due for another heat wave, and then he says it's due
Yeah.
today. I'm like, today? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's not going away, is it? That's the thing, which I'm not complaining about. It's great weather, really, isn't
yeah, never am I. I'm not complaining either.
it?
That's a lot.
Excuse me.
Right. Okay. Yeah, just had to sort that out. What is this? Right. I think we can make a start now, bruv.
Yep.
Uh, do you want to
Ready
do
when
the
you are.
opening introduction for us, please?
We are
Just
recording, yes.
yes, we are recording. Yes.
Okay, welcome along, viewers and listeners, to our weekly podcast, The Alien Spaceship, where we try to find some subjects of interest to everybody. I am Trevor Gear, and he calls me Bruv.
And I'm Emmy Hickins, and he calls me Cuz. Welcome to the Alien Spaceship. Now, today, I believe you've got the topic that we're going to be tackling.
Well, that's an interesting comment because um, normally you would have received on our WhatsApp
I know,
thing,
I
you would
know.
have received a subject. And I thought after 2.5 years at this podcast game, we're quite experienced, aren't we, really? And that's not to say good, but we're quite experienced.
Yeah.
And I thought a change of approach today might be quite interesting. I
Yeah.
hope you agree with that.
Yes.
So instead of saying, starting to do a discussion, asking you a question or two, I thought we would have what I suppose you might call an extemporary podcast approach, meaning
Wow.
it's no preparation, it's all off the cuff, and we'll just instinctively, rather than our high end production values on our
Yes.
podcast, if you believe that, you'll believe anything. But rather than that, I thought we would just see what comes up. And I thought, to be fair to you, as you're the boss, you can start. So over to you, Cuz.
Yes. Okay. It's a good thing I prepared.
But if you have, that's good.
It's a good thing I
You've you've
prepared.
you've
Yeah.
frozen just before you start. You have frozen.
I know I was looking at myself and I'm thinking, what an ugly guy. Who's that? Okay, so I'm still in slow motion. I don't know
Yeah, you're
why.
not. You're very very slow motion, slow mo all the way at the moment.
Very good. It's like I'm in space.
It's not your way of avoiding the issue here of coming up with
No,
something
no,
on the spur of the
no,
moment.
no, of course not. Right. Now, there's something that I thought about, which is remodeling. Now you might think, well, what's remodeling and all that? Now, there are a few actors and actresses that they have something like a pseudonym. And before that, why are you laughing?
Well,
I guess-
I was, but I think perhaps I'm frozen as well because I laughed about 5 minutes ago.
yeah,
You're still moving in a very strange way.
I am. I am.
It's it's
This is
weird, isn't
gonna
it?
this is gonna freak our viewers out when they watch it.
Yeah,
And those
that's
on
good.
live as well. Yeah. Now, I was thinking about remodeling. Now, remodeling where you have certain actors that before they gain stardom or before they become famous, they usually change their name. Um, I don't know if you know, I don't know if you've noticed that, but there was a guy that did that, Dirty Harry, the actor of Dirty Harry. He's changed his name. Um, Now, I tell you what, I find it really hard to concentrate with everybody in slow motion. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Am I in
But
slow motion as well to you?
yeah, Yeah, you are in slow motion to me, and I'm in slow
Yeah,
motion. Oh, I
something's
think
not right, is it?
we're coming back to normal now. Oh, look at that! Look at that! Look at me
Oh,
just going.
right. Well,
Wow. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
I think you're catching up.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you're caught up. Yeah, and am I still okay? Am I moving all right?
Yes, you are okay. Yeah, I think we're
Okay,
normal now.
okay.
Yeah. Now I was thinking about the guy that did Dirty Harry. I don't know if you've seen that movie. He's a British actor. Now he
Long
changed.
time ago. Yeah.
Yeah, now he's changed his name before he became famous. I think there are a few actors. When you Google them, they would say, "Well, this person is known as that." And I'm not talking about musicians because it's very very okay for musicians and writers, but actors usually stick to their name. Um, Now, some of them have changed their names. And I'm thinking, is that sort of remodeling where people would change their name? Is it necessary for success? Is that the main ingredient for success? And before I throw the question to you, it's because we might think it's something that's just started with the Hollywood celebrities and all that, but it's not actually. Because in the Bible, and we're not going to talk about religion, but in the Bible, there was a story about a man called Abraham, and his wife was called Sarai. Now, just before God blessed them, he changed their names from Abram, which didn't have the ham at the end, to Abraham, and then Sarai, that ended with a I, to Sarai with a H. And it just got me thinking, is that a recipe? Is that one of the recipes for success? What do you think?
I don't know. I suppose. I mean, it's an interesting example you said about Abraham. I'm not sure about where how that fits in with it, but a lot of famous people have changed their names from the original name. I guess because they didn't think it was particularly commercial or had any impact. I mean, one good music example is David Bowie, Bowie or Bowie. I'm not sure what I've always said. I think I say David Bowie. Some people
Hmm.
say David Bowie, but you know what his real name was?
No.
I mean, like me, he was born in or around Brixton in South London, and his
Right.
real name was David. His real name was David Jones, but he
Right.
felt that wasn't impactful, and I suppose it's not. He could have stuck with it, but David Jones became David Bowie, shall we say? And
Mm.
interestingly, he called his son, or one of his children, his son, he called him Zoe. So it made him Zoe Bowie, which you might think is a little bit cruel. And actually, when Zoe Bowie got to, I don't know, 18, 19, 20, he changed his name back to Jones. And I don't think he stuck with Zoe. He became something else. But yeah, he didn't like what his parents had done to him. But yeah, there's quite a few examples of people who change their names. I can't readily think of other people at the moment, but in all walks of fame, I suppose, music, acting, or whatever, I bet we'd be quite surprised at people who change their name. Another one actually is David Jason. Famous man, isn't he? From Only Fools and Horses and lots of things. Great actor. He's not really David Jason. His name was originally David White. So again, a perfectly normal name, but David White wasn't, in his opinion or his agent's opinion, sufficient to get on in the acting world. So yeah, I mean, in my own case, as you know, one of my music pseudonyms, because Trevor Gear may not have impact, so I'm in another world. I'm Quentin de Buttock, which I've always thought's got has got a nice bit of impact to it. But yeah, so it's quite fun actually trying to work out in different roles what we could be. But yeah, it's a fact, and if it goes back to biblical days, well, that's quite interesting, I guess.
It is, yeah, yeah. I thought about it and I thought, this actually dates back to biblical days where,
Mm.
there was a man called, and there was another one actually, apart from Abraham. There was another one, and it was called Saul, and it was changed from Saul to Paul.
Yeah, yeah,
So there must be others like that we don't know about. But those are just the two that stuck up to me. It stuck up for me. Yeah, well, that's
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Now this next one that we're going to move to is a saying by an El Salvador president, the El Salvador president Nayib Bukele. Now this is what he says. He says there's a saying, we incarcerated thousands. We can actually say that we've liberated millions. Now, the reason why he said that, I don't know if you, I don't know if you followed the news, not recently, but I think, I think a year back, probably a year back, 12 months ago, when Donald Trump introduced this thing where it get all these criminals from, well, so-called criminals. They weren't determined to be criminals by the courts, but he would get these people in America that he deemed criminals or bad actors in, and it send them to this El Salvador president. And what he did with it was he would incarcerate them, and it was a life imprisonment. They were never released. So I was watching this program on Channel 4 called, let me see what this program is called now. Something about mega prisons or something. I'll find a name in a minute. Um, yeah, so it's a program by Richard Medley. Richard Medley, and the title is Inside the World's Mega Prison, and it's a 90-minute documentary, and it's on Channel 4. I'd recommend it for anybody that wants to watch it. They said it was first aired on Channel 5, sorry, point of correction, Channel 5 on the 27th of May, 2026. Now, there's this prison called Seacot. So I think it's short for something in Spanish, meaning prison. Sea Court Mega Prison. Now, inside this prison, Richard Medley was able to determine that these criminals, they were said to be part of one of the most dangerous gangs or part of a gang. Anybody that was part of a gang and disrupting social activities in the country was then sent to this prison. And they have about 4,000 inmates. I think that's an estimation about that. Now, what he's saying, according to the quote that I read at the onset, he's saying people are saying that he's incarcerated thousands, but he can actually say he's liberated millions. Now, according to what Richard Medley was able to find out in the city of El Salvador, in the country of El Salvador, he said it's what is one of the currently one of the most peaceful countries in South America. And
Mm.
that's his finding. Now we can't substantiate that, but that's what he said. Now, that is incarcerating people to keep other people safe or to 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 sort of allow a normal life for people that want to be peaceful. What is your view on that?
Oh, that was a big question, really. And fair question, but I feel it strays a little bit into politics, doesn't it? That probably is
Right.
something we don't always do because we
We
all
don't.
obviously have our views. For example, we have talked about capital punishment before, and I think in a way that is arguably apolitical because there are pros and cons and people for and against capital punishment right across the political spectrum. So when we've talked about that, we've taken the view that everybody has an individual view of that, and it wouldn't necessarily say anything about their political persuasions. Um, and equally, we all have our views on imprisonments. Should we punish? Should punishment be the major part of why somebody goes to prison, or should it be rehabilitation? Should be the major part. There's different elements to losing your liberty. It's a big thing to lose your liberty. So yeah, it's an interesting question, really. And on the face of it, looking at the question you pose simply, yeah, if you lock up, should we put it simply, lock up the bad people, and there's less crime on the streets in a country, then in some ways, in many ways, that's a good thing. And I think probably in most countries, there's a statistic which is always a bit strange, but it probably is true, and that is 80% of the crime is done by about 20% of the people. Now that's a strangely common statistic when you look into different countries' crime statistics. That 80% of the crime is done by 20% of the people. So on that basis, if you locked up 20% of the people, then you wouldn't have an awful lot of crime. And I suspect crime statistics would go down if we became very kind of dystopian, harsh, more harsh on prison sentences than is the case. So there's a balance to be struck somewhere. But I think beyond that, I wouldn't really have any other comment because I don't know. I think the jury. It's a good expression in this case. The jury is out in a way.
Hmm.
Just what should the priority of punishment be? Maybe it differs depending on a particular crime or the seriousness of it.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think it's a debate that society holds from time to time, and we all form our own views about whether sentences should be tougher. We can all probably think of someone or people, someone who's gone to prison who perhaps shouldn't have done, and someone who hasn't who perhaps should have done. So there will always be a judgment to be made, which is why we have judges, I suppose,
Hmm.
etc. So yeah, that's a very hard question to answer, but that's what I would say about that.
Hmm.
But I must say, if I can jump in here, Cuz,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
congratulations on coming up with a couple of things when I threw at you this extemporary activism, if you like. Let's see if we can do something. And I wouldn't have left you dangling in the wind. I really wouldn't, because I thought I'd give you a choice, and I'll do that now to save you having to think any more about subjects. I'll give you three random subjects that you might want to make comments on that you think we can discuss.
Okay.
Now, what's the first one we can look at? We could discuss, right, the first option out of three, the nature of human thought.
Wow. Okay.
That's a little bit unfair, isn't it? But that's the first one. Right, the
Yeah.
second one, can you talk to me about the second half of Beethoven's 10th Symphony? Okay, well, I thought you may know about him. Or the third option, I
Right.
would say, is the wit and wisdom of John Lennon, one of the Beatles. So you have to make a choice there. And let me tell
Right.
you, John Lennon had great wits and great wisdom. So that's not a necessarily humorous one. But out of those three, the nature of human thought, which we have actually talked about thought quite a lot, haven't we, on our podcast? So it is
Right.
a great subject. Either that or Beethoven's the second half of his 10th Symphony, or the wit and wisdom of John Lennon. What do you think?
Right. Okay. So,
I'm sort of leading you towards one of those. If you give me the wrong one, then I'm stuffed.
I would I would go for the one with John Lennon in. Uh,
There's good. You don't want to change your mind either. I might just say, I might just say about Beethoven.
Right.
who actually wrote, he had nine, I was looking into him the other day, funnily enough, and he had nine symphonies. His 10th one was really, well, it's the unfinished symphony. All it really consisted of before he died, I think in 1827, was a few notes, musical notes, and some sketches about what he planned to do. So that was the great unfinished symphony. And for some reason, I wanted to find out the other day, was the unfinished symphony ever finished by anybody else? Because that can often, or has happened. And of course, the answer came up almost inevitably nowadays. It was finished in 2021, 5 years ago, by who? By AI. Now, good
Oh,
old
wow.
AI comes into our discussions increasingly nowadays,
Yeah.
and it was finished, I gather, brilliantly, and it had its world premiere, the 10th Symphony of Beethoven and AI, in Germany in 2021, which is 190 odd years after his death.
Mm.
So AI is getting everywhere, and just going off at a bit of a tangent there as well. Um, it really is affecting and, dare I say, infecting music as well, which obviously is something you and I are not overly happy about, to put it mildly. And as an example of this, I heard a version of a song a few weeks ago on TikTok, which
Yeah.
they put, as you know, they put often beautiful music or someone's playing something to a nice background. And I may have touched on this before. I can't quite remember, but anyway, this song, it was so beautifully sung by a lady called Mary of Gold, and it's a song. It's an old song, and it's called "The Wedding," and it really is a beautiful song. And the way Mary sings this is just fantastic. And so I thought, well, I'll put that actually on my Spotify because it is such a great song. I mean, that's where I found the version that was on TikToks by Mary of Gold. It's on Spotify, so I put it onto my playlists, and which is great. And then um, one of my beautiful granddaughters, Kimberly, she said, "Oh, what's that song you were playing on there?" When it was playing when I was cooking or something. I said, "Oh, that's a lovely song by a singer I don't know." And there's a picture of this singer, a country singer in America called Mary of Gold. And she looked at it and she listened to it and she agreed it was a fantastic song. But anyway, she did a bit of research, which didn't take her a few minutes. And she said, "Grandad, that's AI. And so is Mary." So Mary, the avatar there, is not a real person. It's not a real voice, it's AI. And the
Mm.
actual music is all AI as well, the arrangement and everything else. Now that didn't deter me from the beauty of that song. It is, you might listen to it sometime. It's called "The
Mm.
Wedding." As I say, it's a song some years old, but this version of it is particularly beautiful. And on TikTok they put it when, a bride is walking up the altar or wherever she's getting married with her father, and it creates a nice emotional visual thing. But the song is brilliant, beautifully arranged, beautifully sung. But and it's all great, but it brings up another question which I didn't actually plan to discuss today. But
Yeah.
should AI songs? I mean, surely they're going to have to be regulated. I don't believe they are already, because should they be eligible for Grammys, for example? Should they be? Can they enter competitions for song quality or singing quality? I know in a personal example that I was in one sense involved in. One local radio station held a competition for a song for their radio station, the title of it, etc., because they won a big award somewhere. And it turned out out of the top 10 songs in the shortlist, the top two, the one that won and the second one, that they said, "Oh, these are the winning ones," and all the rest of it. And it turned out they were both AI, and the people running that station were quite upset because I mean, they didn't appreciate this was the case. but it is, I think, it's begging some questions, isn't it, about
Mm,
what's going to happen about this? Because you sometimes see ads online, and it says, give us a picture of you, say something into your microphone, tell us a song you like, and then they'll give you a video back of you singing this song, as if it in your voice because they've sampled your voice, and it's all very clever and good luck to people, but something needs to be controlled about this because people. I mean, people. I write a lot of music over time. I've written a lot of music. It's not just the music. I mean, I play the instruments. I'm very old fashioned in that way. I don't do anything that is kind of automatic, apart from sometimes a drum background, although I do sometimes have played the drums as well on it. But it's not right. Anybody can just come up with, AI, please write a song and give me the lyrics, and never own up to that. And unless there's some indication, unless you know what you're looking for, which Kimberly obviously did with regard to this song, The Wedding. And I
mm,
say again, I'm not knocking that. That is the most beautiful song,
mm.
and as I say, it's on a playlist. But what do you think about AI and the way it's coming into every part of our lives? It really is. And I'm sure the net effect eventually will be good. That it's another facility that humans have to enhance life for people. But I think there are huge risks as well because we're not sure whether we can ever believe what we see. I think I told you a few months ago that Crystal Palace, my football team, we won the FA Cup a year or so ago and the Community Shield. So there were two trophies at the club, and you could go and have your picture taken with with these trophies, which most of us did. And there's one of a friend of mine who he went and had his picture taken, but he then, I think, using Grok, he then put AI on this, and it ended up with him running away with the FA Cup. And it wasn't. It was just, you wouldn't look at it and think, oh well, that's fake. The question we always have to ask now, I ask it more and more. If I'm looking at something anywhere, picture, video, is it real or is it AI? Because you can't really tell the difference. So, what do you think about this? Do you think AI needs to be properly regulated, not just in music, but across the board? Should we risk it? I suppose driving cars that drive themselves, I guess, is a lot to do with AI. Are we taking huge risks, or what do you think?
Well, first of all, there was, and I think, yeah, I might not be entirely sure on the year, but I think it must have been about 10 years ago. There was a similar thing, and this was way, way, way before we knew about AI. Anyway, this photographer went in the bushes and he was trying to capture wildlife. Now there were a bunch of gorillas around, and one of the gorillas actually got hold of his camera and took some really nice pictures. I don't know if you remember that. Did you remember
You've
that?
not been on the you've not been on the sherbet this morning, Kaz, have you? For goodness sake, a
No, this
gorilla
was on
takes some excellent
this was on
pictures.
this was on the BBC and it's easily verifiable. You can just Google it, you see it.
Wow, I'll have a look.
Yeah, have a look. Yeah. And it came up on it was on the BBC Breakfast. And it came up on the BBC Breakfast because pictures are supposed to have credits back then. You have to credit somebody.
Yeah,
Not so much nowadays, because people can just take screenshot a photo from, Facebook or whatever online, and they can just use it freely. But back then, there was strict laws that were governing the use of photographs, especially if it's by a professional photographer. You have to at least give credit. And the question came up, and I remember watching it and laughing. And a question came up, who gets the credit for this picture? The gorilla or the man? And they said in the end there was a debate about between these two presenters. I can't quite remember their names now, but I know he's one of the famous one of the famous ones that we've had. I think one of them's passed away now. But anyway, there was a debate, and in the end, they had to settle for, well, we cannot give credit to an animal. We have to give credit to the photographer who owns the camera, stuff like that. And I thought, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And now, when you raise this question about the AI, doing stuff that, obviously just copying stuff that we've done or stuff that other people have done and then modifying it and making
Mm,
it sound better or even sound more appealing to the listeners or the viewers. Now, I think the question we should be asking is who gets the credit?
mm,
The owner of the
yeah,
program, who's designed this program, who's written this software, or the person who's used this software to come up with a brilliant product or so whatever article, item. Now, I think there's probably an easy way to solve that. All right. Now, when you buy an Apple computer, you have a standard program that comes with it. If you buy an Apple iPhone or an iPad, there's a standard music making program that
yeah,
comes with it, and it's called GarageBand, and it's free. Now, GarageBand comes and they'll have all these instruments on it, and you use it and you make music, and you can actually sell this music commercially. Now, Apple's not there saying, hey, hang on a minute, we should
yeah,
be getting out of it because you've actually used our
yeah.
sample,
Software, yeah,
yeah, software. So now, if you were a producer and you sampled somebody else's music,
yeah,
you'd have to state it and they'd have to get a cut of it. So I think the answer that you're looking for, I don't think I have it. And I don't think anybody has it.
no,
I don't think the government knows what's going on at this point in time because there's a lot of creativity that is being absolutely tampered with and the rights being eroded
yeah,
and
yeah.
being trampled on by this thing called AI. Now, what do you do with that? I don't know. I
Where does
really
it
don't.
go? Yeah, where
Yeah.
do we go from here with it?
Where do we go from there? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Okay, well, I distracted there. I detracted from what I was saying about Beethoven. Just to finish that,
Yeah.
when I looked into him, as you probably know, he was deaf for a lot of his life. He wasn't born deaf, but I think in his 20s and 30s, he could hear sort of ringing in his ears, and he couldn't quite hear people or soft voices or high notes. Of course, he was a composer, musician, and then in his 40s and early 50s, he lost his hearing altogether, but he still wrote some of his remaining symphonies because he was so beautifully aware of the sound of the instruments and of the notes that he could hear them in his head, even though he couldn't hear them in real life. And so he went on to write his last two or three symphonies,
Mm.
even though he was stone deaf. I think now they realise it was lead poisoning that caused the loss of hearing, but at the time that wasn't recognised. But anyway, an amazing composer with deafness. But just to touch on John Lennon, John Lennon
Right.
was very good at saying some phrases, and in fact, I found a book the other day, which I think I've had in the past, but let me see it there. Can you, John Lennon?
Yes.
Um, and he wrote two books. One was A Spaniard in the Works, not a Spaniard in the Works. He was very good at, missaying things like that. A Spaniard in the Works, and the other one was In His Own Rights, which he wrote, I think, in pretty much in the 60s. But yeah, he came up with some good phrases, not just in writing, but in his lyrics as well. I mean, just to give you an example, on school days, when asked as a child what he wanted to be, he wrote happy. His teacher said he didn't understand the assignment. Lennon replied the teacher didn't understand life. which I thought was very good. He's got that sharp, acerbic wit, really, but he was a very intelligent guy. Um, one of his famous ones is probably "Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans." And that's true of all of us, isn't it? We kind of get a bit bogged down. I
Yeah.
think something else he said was, "There's nothing to fear with life. It's happening. It goes on happening anyway." Something like that. But with taking that stage further, we all know the song, don't we? Imagine. Do you know the song Imagine?
Yeah.
John Lennon's song. You must do. It's a
Yeah.
probably one of his greatest songs, really.
I do. I do know the
Now,
song.
I'll ask you a question about that. If you were asked to describe the nature of that song, this beautiful song, Imagine,
Mhm.
in one or two words, how would you describe it? Would you use words like peace, love? How would you describe what he's trying to say?
Well, I think it's trying to, um, in one word would be hard for me, but I can certainly try to say it in about 3 words. He was trying to describe a world without conflict. World without conflicts. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yes, that's probably a very accurate answer. Do you think, from your memory of the lyrics, do you think it's a practical song? Is it a song that could ever what it's looking for? You know, a world without conflicts, etc. Is that something that was or is ever achievable?
Is it ever achievable? Yes.
You think
Uh,
so?
yes, I do think it is achievable. Now, however, um, he his his way of going about it is a bit distorted. And that's the only way that I'll put it. He's got let's say he's got 90% right. He's got 90% right. It's saying imagine there's no wars. That's correct. Imagine there's no religion. That is correct. 90%. That's correct. Because you can't take away religion from people. And I'm not saying that because I'm a religious person, but the people want to align themselves with something. And whatever you call it, you might not call it religion, but in the end, when you carefully analyze the dedication, the commitment, and everything else that goes with it becomes a religion. Only
Yeah,
thing that might be different is the way you worship. And I'll give you an example. Football, right? There are people that um, they will kill over a football team. They might not intend to, just in the heat of the moment. They think, you know what? You say that about my team, you don't deserve to take another breath. And it's same in religion. There are people that would readily kill somebody else or take somebody else's life for religion, for saying
yeah,
the wrong. Now, I'm not saying that's right. Well, in either spectrum, I'm not saying in a sports spectrum or in the religious spectrum, but I'm just saying it helps us to understand what defines a belief,
mm,
uh, an orientation, a way of life. So it's hard. It's hard to separate that. Now, if they were trying to categorize religion, now that is a different issue. They would say, well, football is not religion. It's a form of entertainment. But does it have the characteristics of a religious person? Yes, it does. So does rugby and cricket,
mm,
and all these other sports. Um, and so it's hard to separate a human from any form of belief. So that's where I look at John Lennon's lyrics and I think, well, okay, so there's everything else that is said, which is absolutely true, which is absolutely true. Even in religion, is
Yeah,
absolutely true. When you look back at the amount of wars that
through
has been
religion. Yeah.
fought through religion.
Mm.
Now, some of them, rightly so, might be labeled religious, but it might have a political sort of intonation to it. We understand that. Well, religious wars,
Mm.
they are religion at the end of the day. And when you think about things like being nationalistic, it's a kind of religion. You know, this is where I belong to. I belong here. And if you don't belong here, or you don't share my beliefs about this particular place, you're as good as dead to me. And you see that with gang wars. So there's gang wars, and they have their own constitution, they have their own
Mm.
beliefs. And they'll say, well, okay, so if you're from N17 or N15 or N whatever, the guy from E18 doesn't like you. It's not because of anything else, just because
No.
you are affiliated with a certain area. So religion can take many forms, it can take many shapes. So if you try to what I would have appreciated about his lyrics was if you do religion right, is there a right way to doing religion? Yes, there is. Be peaceful.
Mm.
Live and let live, live and let live, exist and coexist. That sort of way, then, religion could serve
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
for the better good of mankind. Yeah.
What about another verse then? I mean, you've talked about the religion side of it. And again,
Right.
I guess people have often said religion's always great until human beings get involved, because that's where the problems begin. But what about the second verse? Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. So is it a practical aspiration that there's just one globalized situation that none of us are, you know, natives of a given country. We're all one blob of humanity. Now, it's a verse in what is, let's face it, a beautiful song, and I suspect most people, most of us, think of it and always have done as a very positive song, a very aspirational song for good things. But
Mm.
okay, just examining some of the things that make us think it's a great song, and it is a great song. I think it's a great song, although I don't always agree with the possibility of the outcomes. But could there be a world with no countries where we're all natives of the world, but not individually in terms of the continents, and within the continents, individual countries? Is the setup as it has always been, i.e., continents, encompassing individual countries? Is that the better way for humans to live side by side in the world, do you think?
I would say yes, because there's a lot of divisions that is being created by just having the borders there in the first place. Now, I'm not
Mm.
saying get rid of the borders. We're just analyzing it, aren't we? If you have a border there, for instance, if in a family of five, let's say you're blessed, you get married, you have 3 kids, you have 3 kids, and one of the kids is being given a privilege. You say, well, you're allowed to go in that room because you're this and that and that. But you lot are not allowed to go in. That includes your mom. There's a division right there. But you have your reasons. You have your
Mm.
reasons. Maybe the last time they went in there, they didn't tidy it up. Maybe the last time they went in there, they were touching things that they weren't supposed to be touching. They disorganized your whole setup. So this is a valid reason.
Mm.
But just because you've said that, it then creates a division. And now the one that has had that, the only one that's got that privilege alongside yourself is going to be hated.
Is what? Sorry,
It's going
say
to be
again.
it's going to be hated.
Oh right, yeah.
There's going to be a hatred for that one.
Mm.
They because that person seems to be privileged. People, people start thinking, oh, who do you think you are? You know, they'll be scrutinizing every step that person makes. Even though he's a child, and a child, and there are other children doing that to him, it's still, you've created a problem there. So
Mm.
borders will always be a problem. Now, what the solution is, I don't know.
We don't know.
I
No.
don't know what the solution is.
But so that
But
in a way, we're saying that that is one of that verse again, a bit like the first verse, and I didn't say what that said, but it touches on what you were responding to. His first verse said, "Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only sky," which is kind of talking about the religion,
yeah.
the religious side of things that we know. But we feel certainly there's elements of that which may or may not be achievable. And we just
Mm,
looked at the no countries that probably not achievable.
mm,
What about the last of the verses? Obviously, there's a chorus which says, "You may say, I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will be as one." So that's his great aspiration. But the
yeah.
last one of these verses is, "Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger, a brotherhood of man." Now,
Yeah.
could we live in a world with no possessions? Surely, even if we discounted what do we think of as possessions? Luxury things, I suppose, cars, boats, even domestic things, a musical instrument, a piano, whatever. I don't personally think humans could live without possessions because whether it's cooking utensils, for example, or tools, possessions are very much the stuff of life, whether we like it or not. So, and I'm not trying to knock John Lennon's song. I think it's a beautiful song, but sometimes we get a bit lost in actually what is said in a song. And do you think we could live in a world on what he's saying there? If only we had a world with no possessions, no need for greed or hunger. So, if there were no possessions, would that part of humankind, the avarice, the greed, would that suddenly go with the possessions? But I don't think it would. I think we are flawed in that we can be greedy. We can want everything or want too much. Hopefully, there's another side to us whereby we think of other people too. But do you think we could live in this world John Lennon aspires to, where there's no possessions?
I think we certainly can, but it would involve sharing. It would involve sharing. It would involve an equalizing of, of possessions, really. So because at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, you're gonna acquire possessions in life. Say your dad passes away, and the house that you live in is a possession, of some sort, is a possession of some sort. Now, equalizing would balance that because then nobody has more than they should, and nobody has less.
I'm glad you're not our dictator. Who's to say? Who's to say someone's got more or less than they should? Under what you just said, who's to say someone's got too much?
The eyes, the human eyes, is to say that. It's a very simple answer.
I mean, who is to say though that I didn't really understand what you said about euthanize, but who's to
I
say
said,
that one individual has got too many things?
I said the human eyes is
Oh, the
to say
human eyes. Oh, I
the
thought you
human
said
eye.
euthanize.
Oh,
I
no,
was talking about to wipe half the country out.
no, no, no. It's the human eyes. The eyes can see. The
Yeah,
eyes
but
can
someone's got to make that judgment, haven't they? Yeah, unless you've got a benevolent dictator or a dictator who says, right, I'm making all the decisions. And a lot of people think, incidentally, and we're not going political, but a lot of people think a benevolent dictator is by far the best political system. You put it in the hands of a whole raft of people who you try and get agreement when you got a table of six people talking to each other, you won't get agreement. So quite how you get agreement in a so-called democracy is even tougher. So yeah, someone's got to make that decision. But again, coming back to the question, is it
right?
really practical? Is it really practical?
Is it practical? It, not. I know the answers, but for the purpose of this program, I don't have the answers. But to say from a layman's point of view, is it possible? No, it's not. It's not possible. It's absolutely impossible because, so for instance, you might say, well, why do we have to have one man at the helm of affairs? And then somebody
Or
might say,
one lady. You've got to say both.
oh, yeah, one lady at the
Don't,
helm of affairs.
don't be sexist there.
No, thanks for the correction. Point taken. Now, some people might say that. Why do we have to have one human being at the helm of affairs? Now, you might say, well, now that human being has the tendency to become corrupt. It's just human nature. You're at the top, you call the shots, you make the decisions. That's the tendency for you. And now you think, right, okay, so let's decentralize it. Let's have, different, you know, heads, for instance. And what that does is there will be what you call alliances.
Mm,
So
yeah.
I like I like talking to Trevor better than I like talking to this other guy because Trevor gets me. Trevor understands me. My agenda, Trevor supports it. Boom. Yeah. So it's not possible. It's impossible.
No. But I think
Yeah.
that's how probably we're timing to conclude now. But I think that's a good ending to that beautiful song. And I would never want anybody to think we are knocking one of the beautiful songs, one of the classic songs. We're not. But as humans, I think we have to accept the aspirations in there are not really, most of them are not within our capability. And even if they were, as you rightly said, humans are then prone to want more, to be corrupted if they've got power. So it's a lovely aspiration overall. Basically, peace, no war, love, all those things. And I suppose all we can really do is aspire to those things in our lives if we can, accepting that we are flawed, but grateful for the music of a brilliant songwriter and thinker like John Lennon. God rest
Yeah.
his soul.
Yeah, absolutely. Now this is all we've got time for on the Alien
Mm.
Spaceship. Um, I've been Emmy Hickins, and he calls me Cos. He does call me Cos.
And I'm Trevor Gear, and he calls me bruv.
It's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me.